Hi, everyone. Today is May 1st. No, it is not. Today is May 5th. It is May 5th. Yes, my calendar says that. The time is now 3:02 p.m. Here we are on our last week of the semester of I think I can officially say the year that proved to us all what we were made out of, and our students as well, of course. So I'm officially calling this meeting of the Academic Senate to order. Sharing the agenda. We have here our Academic Senate community values, and in my opinion, we'll be only using these set of community values for one more meetings, unless there's a special meeting called between now and our summer meeting, because after that, the new Academic Senate body will come together and discuss these and talk about what will work for us for the next year. But I'll remind you that today, we're going to be talking equity statement, and I just want us to remember of number 6, that WAIT acronym. Why am I talking? Why aren't I talking? So when we get to that especially, I just want us all to kind of sit and think about our number 6 community value. Our Zoom meeting guidelines. I know that there's a number of newcomers with us today. I'll explain some of the proceedings as we go. I know that Senate especially has a big learning curve, and it can feel very awkward, and when do I speak and when do I not speak? So I'll try and guide everyone through that today to the best of my ability. That being said, the way people participate in the conversation of the meeting is you raise your virtual hand, not your physical hand. And I can see, as the host of the meeting, the order in which people raise their virtual hands through Zoom. Because of the way I screen share in my laptop, some of your videos are off my screen, so I can't see when you're raising your physical hand. So you are to raise your virtual hand and then unmute yourself to talk. Other than that, if everybody can remain muted so that we can minimize background noise, that would be really, really helpful. Approval of the agenda today. So the agenda we will go through basically as posted, except for our timed item, which will be at 4 p.m. for the Faculty Association presentation on their work of faculty evaluation. So other than that, we will be going through the agenda as it's given. Okay, item 3.1. Public comments. So as a reminder and a walkthrough for everybody, we have several opportunities for public comments throughout the meeting. I'm asking right now for general public comments to be given at this time. You have 3 minutes to speak. You can also, members of the public can also declare at this time to give a public comment before a given agenda item. Other than that, people from the Santa Barbara City College community, literally staff, faculty, and students, can request to make public comment before any agenda item as we go through. All you have to do is raise your virtual hand before we get to an item and just say that you want to provide public comment. Even to this day, I still need helpful reminders to say, hey, I want to make public comment about this before we get to a particular agenda item, or if senators can help me remember that as well to call for that, that would be greatly appreciated. So I'll just ask, is there anyone that would like to give public comment at this time? If so, please raise your virtual hand in the participants field on Zoom. Okay. I'm not seeing any hands raised, so we'll move on. Okay. Oh, big day for us at the Senate, for sure. So here we are at item 4.1, and we're going to be acknowledging Senate membership changes. So we do have, I'd like to welcome some of our newly elected and returning senators. So officially seated today will be the following people, but as our bylaws read, they don't officially assume their duties until the day after commencement. So if you'd like to leave the meeting early, feel free to do so. But of course, please stick around and kind of learn the ropes and see how things go. I hope that you feel welcome to stay and have the time today. So in order of I can't say that. In order of division, by ABCs. There we go. We have Benjamin Reyes from Business. We have Joy Kuntz from Fine Arts, Elizabeth Chisholm from Math, and today she will be Pam Gunther's proxy until Pam can join us. Jess Estrada from Chemistry, representing the sciences. I don't want to play any favorites, but I am a chemist, just a reminder. And then of course, Ruth Morales is joining us again from the social sciences. So congratulations to all of them for being elected in their respective divisions. And we will help you learn the ropes. And I hope that you find that we treat you really well here at the Senate. I hope that you enjoy your time here. All right, so this is a big one. Our outgoing senators, especially because many of these folks have contributed a number of years to this table and have given a lot of, not necessarily blood, I don't remember blood, but definitely sweat and tears for sure. So Cornelia Alzheimer from the Business Division is an outgoing senator. Our very own parliamentarian and past president, Patricia Stark from Fine Arts, who has kept us on course this year. Big thank you to Patricia. Michelle Gottwald from Health and Human Services, Pam Gunther from Math, and of course, both Michelle and Pam were also liaisons. So Patricia, Michelle, and Pam, of course, had like bigger leadership roles and more responsibilities on the Senate. So their absence is surely going to be felt. Jen Betancourt, Dr. Betancourt from the sciences. And then this is a tricky one to acknowledge. And it's because we have, let's say, a gap or some awkwardness, I would say, in our bylaws and constitutions, which say basically for our adjunct faculty senators, and this was true last year as well, that they're technically outgoing because they are in the current cohort of outgoing senators as per our election cycle. But then the elections for our part-time senators don't happen until the fall. And so this happened for credit with Ana Garcia, of course, and she was elected in September. And then this is going to happen again in School of Extended Learning for our non-credit colleagues. So Tricia is technically an outgoing senator, and she may run in the fall, and I hope that she does. However, that means that non-credit will have a gap in leadership over the summer, and the summer meeting and the retreats, I'm sure especially returning senators know like how important those summer meetings are and those retreats. And so what we're going to do is have Tricia stay on in that role and then hold the official election in the fall. Does that make sense to senators? And does that seem reasonable? Awesome, I hope so. And yeah, Tricia and Patricia and myself were exchanging emails about this, and so we're all clear on this. And this is just a shout out to that summer work group of updating the bylaws and constitution. And this is going to be some of the work, right? There are just things in there that just don't make sense that haven't been cleaned up throughout the years. So let's make sure that they are cleaned up. Okay, item 4.3, we are now at the election of a Senate Vice President. Now, Patricia, are you the one that runs this election, or is it I as the sitting president that runs it?
Well, you know, Ray, I honestly don't know. It's not in our, it's a gap in our bylaws.
So do you want to flip a coin, or should I just call now for nominations for Vice President?
I honestly can't see any conflict with our president running this election. So please be my guest. Thank you.
I will do that then. All right, so I am now formally calling for nominations for Vice President of the Academic Senate. So I've shared out about this before. The Vice President of the Academic Senate participates in steering. They earn a single TLU in addition to the senator TLU that they earn. And then they fill in for the president when they're not there. And then there's a number of appointed committee assignments that are negotiated and discussed for the vice president to sit on in an ex officio way. Robbie Fisher, I see your hand.
Nominate Ana Garcia for vice president.
Thank you for that. Ana, do you accept the nomination?
Sure.
Whoa. Okay, you said sure.
Sure,
So
yes,
I'm
Yes.
I'm going to accept that, sure. Um, Let's see, Ellen,
I was just going to second that nomination.
okay. Okay, we have a first, we have an acceptance, and we have a second. I would like to call for any further nominations for vice president, and then we can do a roll call vote for the election. Are there any other nominations for vice president at this time? Okay, question has been asked and effectively answered by the silence, so I'm going to assume that this is well, no, I'm not going to assume, it is an uncontested election for vice president. So I think that we could do this one of two ways, and I'll leave it to our parliamentarian and the Senate body to tell me what we're most comfortable with. With an uncontested election, Robert's Rules of Order says that we can do the nomination through by acclamation, meaning that we don't have to do a roll call vote, or we can do a roll call vote so that each senator has their votes recorded in the minutes. What are we feeling here? Patricia?
Ray, just a point of order, and that is if we do acclamation, it has to be a voting senator who makes that request.
Got it. Does everybody understand that? Coolness.
That means one of you guys would have to make that request, not someone other than Ray.
This is Ruth,
Translate.
and I make the request to vote by acclamation.
Thank you, Ruth. All right. So we have a request. Do we have to do, I mean, is that it, Patricia? We just go with that?
Yes,
Okay. All right,
unless someone would like to, wait, I'm sorry, did we get a second on that?
we didn't.
Okay, we need a second, and then we have opportunity for people to argue against it or for it.
Okay, that's
And then,
right.
We can go ahead
Jenny
and just
Jenny
accept the vote.
Baxton will second.
Okay,
Sorry.
so we have a request by Ruth, a second by Jenny Baxton. We can have a discussion. Any comments for discussion?
And if not, we can just move into the vote by acclamation.
Okay. And I'm not seeing any, so vote by acclamation? That's it? Thumbs up?
Well, what should happen is that Ruth, I think, should repeat her motion that we accept this vote by acclamation of the Academic Senate.
Okay, so I move to accept this by acclamation of the Academic Senate.
And then we can all say woo.
Yeah.
Ah, yay. Woohoo. Okay, Anna, you're on the hook.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right. How exciting. Thank you so much, Robbie, for making that nomination. Anna, thank you for stepping into this role. It's going to be an exciting year. Oh, and before we move on, speaking of moving into new roles and exiting and outgoing, I did not put this on the agenda, but I'm sure some are curious. The point of my weirdness of having a second term as an Academic Senate president and the role of the past president with Patricia retiring, how are we going to handle that? Librarian Kenley Neufeld is here with us, and he is a former Academic Senate president, of course, and so he has accepted my request for him to join me as the past president for the Academic Senate in that role. So Kenley, you're here, right?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
So yeah, Kenley's on the hook as well.
Thank you, Kenley.
Yes.
So Ray, I can't raise my hand. This is Patricia. I can't raise my hand because I'm a co-whatever. But I would actually like to move that we install Kenley Neufeld as the past president of the Academic Senate for the 2021-2022 school year.
Okay, so that's not at my pleasure. That has to go by an official.
Yes, I think so.
Okay, all right, well, we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I will second that, and if we can vote by acclamation, I move to vote by acclamation.
I will accept that friendly amendment.
Okay, Any discussion on past president or vote by acclamation of the past president? I'm seeing and hearing none. Now we can give Kenley a yay.
Yay.
All right, thanks everyone. So here we are at the minutes of 5.1. For the minutes of our regular meeting from April 28th. So they have been distributed and posted for your review. At this time, are there any amendments or can we accept them as posted? I'm hearing no requests for amendments to the minutes or changes, edits. So I will assume, unless hearing otherwise, that we are accepting them as distributed for posterity. All right, excellent. Moving on. Okay, President's report. I think the biggest one for me is that we have several summer work groups going on, and I hesitate to ask for any more time and energy after this heavy lift of a year, but because it was such a heavy lift of a year, I thought that perhaps the summertime would give us a little more flexibility on some of the items that we really need to flesh out and get to. So I've created several different work groups. So how do you join them? You just simply email me. What if you're going on vacation? What if you're not available all of the time? It's all good. We'll take you when you can come. We'll communicate via, electronic sharing of documents and editing and things like that. And as they say, many hands make light work. So if you are available or interested in any of these subjects that I'm about to go through again, please just let me know. And again, even if you can just contribute via editing documents and giving thoughts there, that would be incredibly helpful. This call is for all faculty. And so again, when I mean all faculty, I literally mean full-time, part-time credit, part-time non-credit. So anybody who wants to get involved. So I created a work group for credit for prior learning so that we can get the classroom academic side of credit for prior learning to match with the student services side. So there's a lot of moving parts there. So if credit for prior learning is something that interests you or you still have questions about, please join me for that one. There's a second work group on academic senate bylaws and constitution. Constitutional changes require a very formal process and a majority vote by our faculty body for changes. It's very hard to make constitutional changes. They're kind of rare. And already mentioned with some of the gaps in our bylaws. So I would like some summer help to go through those different things, finding those different issues and fleshing them out so that when we come back together in the fall, we can present the faculty body with a plenary session on the proposed changes to our constitution and a way forward, and so that it can be very clean and easygoing. Some of the work is already done for us as we attempted this in the spring of 2020, which was last year. And this work actually got disrupted by us all moving to remote situations thanks to COVID. So with that in mind, hopefully you can join me. In that discussion, we'll also be discussing moving around our Senate subcommittees and trying to figure out subcommittees that really work for the Senate, and if our current ones work and what doesn't work and what's not working well and in areas of improvement there, we will also do that. And then there was one more subcommittee and I'm forgetting, and my son is cold. The other things that are on my mind, I hope that you all made it to the return to campus meetings led by our administration. Lots of questions were answered there. If you weren't able to make it, Luz sent out the recording link today, so you can catch that there. The other things I want to mention to you all is commencement is Friday night. It is our duty and obligation as faculty, not to mention, I hope you enjoy commencement to be there and cheer on our students. It's of course virtual. So if you can make some kind of social gathering around it, if you're vaccinated, or some kind of virtual viewing party, that would be really great. be really exciting and a chance for all of us to sit in community together while we cheer on our students. And then the other thing I want to mention is Dr. Goswami has indicated in several different spaces that the Board of Trustees will be deciding upon and considering whether or not vaccinations will be mandatory for returning to campus. So it will be important for you to make your voices heard, whether it's via email, letting our Board of Trustee members know how you support that or your thoughts on the matter, so that they know what decisions would serve our campus community well. So if you have the time, please keep that in mind. Keep public comment at the board, email, something. Okay. What else? Let's see. I'm going to give up the rest of my president's report time to Orwin and Rob Brown, because they wanted to share something with you. So Oren and Rob, can you take it away for a couple minutes?
Thank everybody for letting us take some time here. I've recently seen a few different emails and heard a lot of people talking about HyFlex classrooms and interest in these. At current, there is no classroom on campus that is set up to accommodate such a system. So Rob Brown and I are kind of asking for people who have an interest in this to please reach out to the two of us. We need to set up a meeting. We need to talk to people to figure out what it is people might be interested in doing and just try to work with faculty to see how realistic it actually is. That's why I kind of came here today. I'm hoping that you all can help spread the word to other faculty members. And what's especially important is that if this is something somebody wants to pursue, it needs to start now in order for it to have a chance of being ready in fall. If faculty wait and then they start asking for this 2 weeks before the fall semester, I can pull a lot of things off, but that I can't do. So if you know of anybody that's interested in talking about this, please have them reach out to Rob Brown and myself. We're already meeting with a couple of faculty members in the next week or two here. We're happy to meet with people, talk about it, and then I can go and look at the actual classrooms in mind and see what, if anything, we can do about it. Rob? Do you mind
Yeah,
adding?
and just as a reminder, when we're talking about HyFlex is basically the concept of a live Zoom while you're also lecturing to live students in your class. So doing two things at the same time. So there's a lot of complications involved in that. And so we just want to work with faculty to figure out, and departments to figure out what rooms are going to be possibly used for this, what hardware is needed, and to make sure that if you're thinking long-term, that we're thinking about curriculum as well. Hybrid, right, is the idea of some of the class is done in face-to-face and then some of the class is done online asynchronously. So that's kind of the difference that we're talking about.
I mean, we need to cover just how complex it would literally be to have 15 to 20 students in person in front of you, and then 15 to 20 students in a Zoom meeting that you're trying to teach at the same time. And that's the concept of HyFlex, which is why it's really important that we start this conversation well before fall. So.
All right.
And Robbie has a question.
Yep. Quick clarifying questions, Robbie?
Yeah, hybrid doesn't have to be asynchronous. Isn't that true? I could have a hybrid class where the online portion is synchronous.
Well, that would require you having a classroom that has a webcam in it, and most classrooms do not.
No, and what? Okay, so I'm asking because I teach lectures and labs, and so if I have some of my sections have a face-to-face lab, but the lecture is all online, it can be synchronous or asynchronous online and still fit the same definition, right?
Right, but they're separate entities, right? So this is happening
yeah.
online, separate from the face-to-face component. We're
Okay.
talking about HyFlex is online and face-to-face at the same time.
Yeah, that's where our concern is, because that's
You're
going to
good.
be a fairly complex setup. So just if anybody expresses any interest in that, please point them in our direction, and we'll be happy to meet with people and start the process. So thank you all for the time. I really appreciate it.
Anna?
I just had a quick question about that. Would that apply if like there were meetings that people wanted to do that with?
You could still reach out to me to talk about that, but this is what my bigger concern is classrooms. Meetings are going to be a little less complex, a little easier versus actual teaching in this type of environment. We need to do some planning.
Okay, cool.
And most meeting rooms already have that kind of set up. And I'm seeing Beth's kind of comment in the chat too. Beth, if you want to also pursue this a little bit, if you want to meet with us, just shoot us an email. We're happy to talk to LRC about this as well.
Okay, thanks so much for being here, guys.
Thank you very much.
I remembered the other committee, and I must be really tired because it's the one I forgot. The NTCC work group for restructuring our non-teaching compensation committee. So that's the other one. Lastly, Dr. Pamela Ralston emailed about this earlier, so perhaps she was going to mention this in her report, but I did have a call from Rachel Johnson at the foundation for me to mention it as well, which is the HSI, Hispanic Serving Institution STEM grant. It was just, I don't know what you say about grants. I mean, records are dropped. What are grants? Dropped? I don't know. Just dropped. So anybody interested in that, please contact Rachel Johnson and Dr. Pamela Ralston, and maybe she'll have more eloquent things to say about it. Okay, now for our Senate liaison reports. Ruth, Robin, Robbie, Pam might not be here, and Michelle. Any oral reports you want to provide?
I don't have a report.
Just the
Robin?
written report,
Just the written
which I
report?
might not have this time.
Oh, that's okay. All right. All right, cool. Item 6.3, Executive Vice President Report. Dr. Ralston.
I don't have much of a report except a couple of reminders. One, EOPS is celebrating its students who have succeeded this evening at 5 p.m. So that stop time of 5 p.m. is going to be really important. Academic Senate today, and I hope some of you are going to be able to join. It's wonderful. I was able to go to the TAP program over the weekend, and that was a phenomenal experience. I wanted to reiterate Rayanne's encouragement and strong nudging to make sure you go to commencement. It's a not perfect venue for us, but students get really excited about the chat that happens in the YouTube screen and all of those things that happen. So I really hope you're able to go. And then lastly, it is a very short deadline for this request for people to participate in the HSI. So if you're at all interested, read, write, do a quick interest letter. I've got directions for that. They're very simple, and send in your CV, and we will be doing a quick review of that and hopefully finding somebody who can help us finalize the ideas inside the grant and move that forward and then oversee it in the next 3 years. So pay attention to that, and there you go.
Thank you for that. All right, item 6.4, there was no outside request to agendize items at this meeting or in the future, so we have nothing to consider today. We have no items on our consent agenda to consider, so now we are at item 8.1. So Dr. Vandana Gavaskar provided us with budget assumptions and allocation proposals, so they are attached to our agenda here. It's my understanding that the FPSS committee, which is the Faculty Partnership for Student Success, has not yet had a chance to meet and approve these, but that's why they're coming to us as an information item and not an approval. Any questions on this item? If not at this time, you'll have another opportunity this Friday at FPSS as well. Okay, 8.2, Senate Subcommittee Annual Reports. It's an annual request for our Senate subcommittees to supply written reports for their work throughout the year. We received 2 thus far. So we received PNR, Planning and Resources End of the Year Report, there for you to review, as well as the Committee on Faculty Resources. I hope to receive the others by our summer Senate, especially incoming senators or all of our senators. Please make sure that you are reading through these. It's a really important work that our subcommittees provide, and it gives us a really nice overview of what they're doing. It will also help us inform those summer conversations of how we're working with our subcommittees and delegating work and things like that. All right, so now we are at item 9.1, calendar drafts. So while this is a discussion item, I want to point out that we do have a policy on our campus that our academic calendar must be approved by May. And so I am your representative on the calendar task force that is going to meet, and basically that task force has to give a recommendation to finalize the calendar. So even though this is a discussion item today, I am going to need to have a firm recommendation from the Senate between our two options of which one I need to carry forward and use my vote as our constituency representative at the calendar task force for final editing of our calendar. Now, there was a mistake found in the documents provided to me. Jens, I know you emailed me, but I was kind of hoping that you could explain. I'm sorry to put you on the spot. Are you willing to do that? I just thought that you could do it better than I could.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. And sorry about that error. The error is as follows. Those of you who've been in these discussions or who have asked questions will remember that we've always said the summer, and it's actually the text document is correct, so there's no errors there. But we've always said that this will start in the fall of 2022, because that's our policy. We approve the calendar for 14 months down the road, which means the summer changes. The first time we would see the summer changes is summer 2023, which is absolutely correct, right? So the summer, no matter which option we choose, the summer 2022 is going to remain the same it is right now, which is 2 6-week summer sessions back to back as 2 separate terms. So that's never going to change regardless of what we choose. Now, unfortunately, in preparing the graphical representation on option number 2, accidentally we forgot, or we overlooked the highlighting of summer 22. If you add those weeks up, those are 10 weeks, not 12 weeks. That's wrong, right? Summer 2022 is going to be 12 weeks, no matter how you twist it or turn it. So it's correct in the text, but in the highlighting that you're looking right here in the color coding, it's unfortunately incorrect, right? So summer 2022 on option 1, on the file for option 1, it's correct. On this one that you're looking at, which is option 2, it's incorrect. So no matter how you twist it or turn it, even on option 2, summer 2022 will start. Ray, can you scroll up a little bit? Up. Yeah, summer 2022 will start on May 16th and end on August 6th, because that's 12 weeks, not the 10 weeks that are color coded here. So I hope that clarifies that. Again, sorry about the mistake that we didn't catch this earlier. Does that make sense? So again, summer 2022 is not going to change no matter which option is going to be picked. If you were to pick option 2, the 10-week summer term would start in summer 2023.
Okay. And Jens, I was hoping that you would stick around and help me slog through the questions, should anybody have them.
I'd be happy to.
Okay. So just a reminder of everybody how this work's been going. I've been on this I've been on this calendar task force. Robbie has been working on it as well. Michelle Gottwald, Jennifer Hamilton, and then myself and Robbie has had a number of subs, including Pam Gunther and Ruth Morales as well. Okay, and this is the second time that this has been on our agenda. The first time we gave preliminary feedback. At that time, we had 4 options. Now it's coming back to Senate to say, okay, what are we doing as faculty? What is our recommendation? Are we staying with the status quo? That's essentially option one, or are we moving to this new model? Trisha?
So I think I know the answer, but I just want to clarify, make sure I'm on the understanding it correctly. So with the change plan, the one with the 10-week summer term, that's kind of a net loss of for 2 weeks for students or taking classes. So for example, in my area, non-credit, we have students who are taking classes and then they continue on summer 1 to summer 2. So they're going to be losing 2 weeks of instruction.
It depends on how you look at this. So I have this diagram up for you that kind of explains what we're moving into. So it's true that previously when we were, and Jens, help me out here if I'm wrong, previously we had a 6-week and a 6-week. So it's true that we had a 12-week time. Okay, and now we have an overall 10-week time. But now within that, we're going to have flexibility. And these are just some of the choices. Now we can't have an infinite number of choices, right? But basically there's going to be multiple summer sessions and 1 summer term. And I know this sounds like semantics, but previously we had 2 summer terms. Pamela, I saw your hand go up. Do you want to explain this a little bit? Is that what you're in response to? Yeah, go ahead, Pamela.
Yep. You were on a tear though. You were getting in, you did the terms, you got the language in there. I think the piece that School of Extended Learning will want to pay attention to is that non-credit is driven by positive attendance. Courses are designed around hours of contacted learning. So in a case where we shorten weeks by offerings, non-credit will want to make their classes schedule longer. So it's, are we distributing the hours across the 6 weeks? Are we distributing hours across 10 weeks? Or are we distributing hours deeper into the time period? So Trisha, we'll work with School of Extended Learning to adjust into the new format, and there can be some really interesting options in here. We did have Sachika Oates serve on that committee to help keep in mind what was happening there, and kind of did some reaching back and forth with non-credit. So I think what we'll do is make sure that there's enough time to account for the hours of contact that are on the course outlines of record for non-credit.
So I'm hearing for adult high school, we're going to lose 2 weeks. I know that because the way our classes are structured, our students are going to have 2 weeks. Doesn't matter if we make the days longer or shorter. So I'm a little concerned about that. But so what I'm hearing though is that longer class periods. So, but in a shorter period of time. So they're only going to go for 5 weeks, but instead of going maybe for 2 hours, I know the math is going to be wrong, but instead of going for, having a 2-hour class, now you're going to have a 3-hour class on a particular day. So is that right? You're squeezing in the same amount of time. Okay. And then for classes that are open entry, open exit, where their students have flexibility with hours, they're just losing the opportunity to go for 2 weeks. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Can I chime in on one thing real quick? So while those are, Trisha, what you mentioned are some of the options to make that work, but there's another one, and that is that you could leave courses at 6 weeks in length and schedule them the exact same way. They would then, that doesn't necessarily work in all cases, but it does work in some cases, right? So if it's a back-to-back course where students take the first one and then the second one, of course, 6 weeks and 6 weeks doesn't fit into 10. They would overlap in the middle for 2 weeks, right? And so then in the middle, you would have to, schedule them separately, right? So depending on what the course is, that may work in terms of the content, or it may not. But for the courses where that does work, that's another option. So just because it's 10 weeks doesn't mean you can't continue to run 6-week long courses. You can. You just have to make the scheduling work.
And didn't School of Extended Learning used to work on their own calendar, and wasn't their own calendar 10 weeks? 6 years
depended.
ago?
Yeah, I know in my area, there some were 16 weeks, some were 10 weeks. So it depended, but yeah. Okay, thank you.
So Pamela, is your hand still up from before?
No, I forgot to put it down.
Okay, so you're driving around with your blinker on?
Yes, it's my hazards actually.
Okay, we have Jenny and then Julie.
Okay, so this follows up on what Jens was saying. Let's say for my division in a 10-week summer term, 5-week classes are undesirable pedagogically. And so we want to run maybe 6-week, 8-week, 10-week courses. I think I had asked this at a previous Senate meeting when you brought this to us about when we could schedule those. And what you had said, I thought, was it's preferable or maybe only possible to run those different length courses with the same start date at the beginning of summer session 1. But this graphic makes it look like you could run those different length classes at any kind of starting point. So if we wanted to run different length courses, do they all have to start at the beginning and then run their duration, or we pick when they start?
Yeah, sorry about, it sounds like I wasn't really clear when you, because you asked that same question last time around, right? So sorry about not being really clear on that. So they can, what you see in this graphic is kind of illustrating that. It's a limited graphic because it's not showing all the options. There are other options in addition to this, but what you for sure, so to answer your question, they do not all have to start at the beginning and then run however long they run. They can for sure start at the beginning and run for however long they run. They can also for sure end at the end and start whatever that means for ending at the end, right? So what do I mean by that? If you're looking at this graphic right here, a 6-week course can start week 1, run for 6 weeks, or you can start week 5 and run for 6 weeks because then it ends at the end. Those are the most common options that we know will work. There's a possibility that other options might work as well. Let's say start a 6-week course in week 2. We don't know for sure that that will work because of some of the banner backend work that would need to be done to do this. That's why they're not in this graphic. So we know for sure that there are several options to, for instance, run a 6-week course. Started in week 1 or started in week 5. Maybe there are other ones, maybe they're not. We would have to try that. But it also gets to the point, you know, at some point, there's too many options that are going to be too confusing and not match up with student schedules. So we got to draw the line somewhere, and I don't know where that line is going to be, but it may be that. So does that clarify what you were asking about? Am I making sense?
Yeah, except that if you started a 6-week course at the week 5, doesn't that run into 11th week? What am I missing? Am I not?
No, if you start, so at the beginning of week 5, right, you've lost 4 weeks. At the beginning of week 5, you start a 6-week course that takes you to the end of week 10.
Okay.
Right, you see the graphic here, the green one?
Got it. Sorry, my Zoom thingy was covering it up, so I couldn't see it. Thank you.
All right, we have Julie and then Tara.
Hi, there are a couple of things I want to ask, not just my curiosity, but for my division. We have rolling start dates already in our many of our certificate programs. They've been online before COVID ever was for working adults, actually post BS, post BA. And with these rolling start dates, they still will be able to, right, have the same amount of classes for 5 weeks if we do them in a hyper compressed manner the first 5 weeks, like a summer session 1 once was or is now and will be, and a summer session 2, because in serving multiple markets of students, these working adults that come back to get saleable job skills is important. Are we going to not be able to offer what we have in the past, like we have in these summers? Because I'm really concerned for the students trying to get, you know, a certificate to be able to help them with employment.
Are you talking about open entry, open exit courses? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, you know, well, when they get a marketing certificate, for example,
sure,
on the fast track, they're working adults, usually actually a lot of UCSB comm majors and global studies, they get a job in marketing and they don't know it. So they come to get a certificate to help them be able to either understand their employment or to branch out. But they know that they can get it if they do summer session 1, summer session 2. Yeah, I mean, they're totally focused. But is this going to affect them that they can't take 2 classes or 3 classes? I don't even know if 3 is allowed, but 2 in like a summer session the first 5 weeks, and then in the second 5 weeks. Because that target market's important for me to be able to address for my colleagues in my division.
Yeah, so the way you would schedule open entry, open exit courses, that's not going to change. You could still do that, but I think you may be also asking something else, which is the number of concurrent units a particular student might be able to take, right, at any given point in time, right?
Because I think they could take 6 summer session 1 and 6 summer session 2, and that helped them stay on track. Is that still going to be offered, that offering for them?
Yeah, right. And so that's a really good point, right? So one of the things that would need to happen, which is in one of the write-ups of the write-up of the draft document here, is that the admissions and records policy on maximum number of units would need to be adjusted to make that work for students, right? I don't have a good answer what that's going to be, but it's exactly the kind of thing that you just mentioned, right? We wouldn't want to limit students' options just because this is one term now. It being one term solves a lot of problems, but it does mean that the policies and procedures in A&R have to be adjusted because, this is now spread out over 10 weeks. And so students ought to be able to take more units than they are in 6 weeks, right? Makes a lot of sense. So yes, that would need to be adjusted. And I don't have a good answer for you because, that hasn't been done of what the number of units is going to be, but it certainly would need to be adjusted to account for that. Absolutely, yes.
And there would be a huge enrollment drop in a lot of these vocational areas, where we give them these, saleable job skills because they're already educated overall. So could this be affecting the college's income? That's the second thing by doing this, because I see a lot of challenges ahead for you, and I appreciate all the work everyone's done, but just kind of curious.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
Julie, I'm not sure why we would in any way complicate folks' life who are coming back and trying to do things more quickly. This setup actually should create more ability for folks to innovate short concurrent courses. So
that's great. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah. And we used a part of Ventura's model. So Ventura, this is back to the point. We need to do some work to decide how we will make it pretty consistent to have shorter and longer offerings inside this term. Ventura does theirs with like sets that go 4, 6, 8, 10, I think. And you can either have everything start at the beginning, or you can have everything start at the beginning and end at the same point. So there's some really logical ways to do this, but I think we could do something really fabulous in this, where we can have sets of 3s in CTE for folks who wanted to do something much more nimble.
Yeah,
so
well,
there's some real option.
I just want to make sure they can get the 6 units like we had in some summer session 1, which is generally what they would take. And then they'd take 2 in summer session 2. And that allowed them to have a fast track and focus both in the, fall and then the spring. So yeah, it is the cap, I guess, of the units. I'm hoping...
and that's just a policy change that we'll need to work through.
Thank you.
All right, Tara, Ruth, and then Anna.
Thanks, Ray. And thank you. Yes, I know this has been a lot of work and it's really complicated work, and I appreciate all of that. I wanted to share and reiterate some of the concerns that have come up in my division in the social sciences. And that is, ultimately, we are losing 2 weeks that have been dedicated for summer school. And we really like this idea about allowing for flexibility and having the opportunity to have like a 10-week session. But we are really concerned because there's no way we can fast track our courses down to 5 weeks. That's just not feasible in the social sciences. 6 weeks was pushing it, but 5 weeks would be brutal. And we would lose then countless opportunities for student learning. So from a pedagogical point of view, that's troubling. For us too, what we're concerned with is, and I see here the staggering of 2 6 weeks, but we are then losing some of that flexibility for when students can enroll and take courses. And for some of the courses in the social sciences, they're serial courses. So in many ways, a lot of students will take, the first one in summer session 1, and then the second one in summer session 2. So these are just some of our concerns that we do fear that we actually will lose enrollment ultimately. And the bigger question I guess I would have is why this is an either or situation. Like, it has to either be 10 weeks, which I think is driven largely by wanting to avoid holidays on Mondays for the fall and in the spring, or we keep just what we have and we don't change anything. I'm just wondering why we came to that conclusion, that it's either this or we don't do anything. So thank you.
Yeah, so maybe a couple of things. I think you asked a couple of questions. So there are certainly, I couldn't agree more with you. There are certainly courses that, are currently in 6 weeks, where it's probably a stretch already to get through that in 6 weeks, right? You wouldn't want to have them in 5 weeks, right? So those are the kinds of courses that you would either, and I mean, I know I'm not telling you anything new, right? But that you would either want to leave at 6 weeks and then they overlap, which works unless it's a sequential course. Or you make it even better, maybe, because 6 weeks, as you mentioned, is already too tight. You schedule it over 8 weeks or over 10 weeks, right? And then if you schedule it over 10 weeks, you could have 2 of those, that the students then wouldn't be taken at the same time. So there's those options. So it's, I guess what I'm saying, that comes down to a scheduling question, right? You mentioned the sequential courses. So when we looked at that, there are some, some of those kinds of offerings, but it turns out actually that when you look at how many students in a sequential course, how many students, so IR did check on that to look at, how many students in the second summer session course took the prerequisite in the first summer session course. And in those courses, it's somewhere in the 15 to 20% range of the number of students in those courses. And so there's very few courses of those to begin with that we're offering sequentially. So overall, the number of students is really small who are actually taking a course in summer session 2 currently that has a prerequisite in summer session 1. So that's that. And then the other question that you had was about, why is it this or, why is it one or the other? So that's really what the task force spent a lot of time on trying to figure out. The task force went through, probably another half a dozen options or so to try and figure out, what's really sort of the best improvement. And what folks felt was that this would be the best other option. There were some, somewhat recently we had it narrowed down to 4 options, and then we narrowed it down some more. And it was one of those things where folks just felt that, it's this would be the best other way of making it work. And the reasons that drove it there were one that you already mentioned, right? The spring holiday, Martin Luther King holiday, moving the start of the spring semester past that allows you to get beyond an additional Monday holiday. But there's another big piece to that, and there are actually maybe 2 other pieces to that. And that one of them is the fact that this also is the only other option that allows you. So this is the only option that allows that MLK, pushing spring past MLK Day, but it's also the only other option that allows for longer breaks between primary terms. So between between fall and spring, and between spring and the beginning of summer. So it would allow for at least 2 weeks between spring and the beginning of summer, which makes a huge difference for A&R and financial aid, both from a staff perspective, but also from a student perspective, because students then would get their financial aid much earlier than they do currently. So that was another big piece. I know we're always looking at the summer here, but those are the other big pieces of why this option made it to the top. And then there's another piece that is related to having a single summer term as opposed to 2 summer terms like we do right now. And that is that students who qualify for certain programs only have to qualify once, and then they qualify for the entire 10 weeks, whereas right now they have to qualify twice and only qualify for 6 weeks a pop, right? So those are things like EOPS or other programs that have those kinds of requirements. So it makes a difference in that regard as well. So those were some of the main reasons of why, in addition to the summer piece, why this option sort of boiled to the top, and folks just felt that, this is the best other option out of all the other, variations of piecing it together, right?
Jens, I had to step away for a second. And I didn't hear, did you explain why pushing the calendar beyond like a holiday is important and it has nothing to do with like it being a holiday? Did you go into that at all?
I did not, and I think maybe you want to take that because I think you got a really good spin on that.
Okay, so yeah, and I do, because it, for instance, it affects my discipline quite in a really important way. So, well, a holiday, you know, a holiday in a particular schedule sorry, let me back up. So while a holiday might affect a class like, I'll pick on my friend Ruth, econ, or an English class, Jenny, you're my friend too. A holiday comes, you can just push your content to your next meeting day, right? So if it's on a Tuesday and you miss a Tuesday, okay, you just do that work on a Thursday. In the sciences where we have quite, and it's not just for the sciences, this also affects PE or any classes that only meet once a week. And we do have a number of evening courses that only meet once a week, for instance, on a Monday. For the sciences where we have large lecture sections and then individual breakout labs, to have a holiday be on one of the days where you have labs, now you have a choice. Either, well, the choices are really crappy, right? It's either you miss a week of instruction because you don't want to fault the Monday people for having a holiday, and you can't give the other people content that they're not getting, right? And this is like a single class, even though there's these breakout lab sections, or you don't, right? And then you have Monday people missing really important content, right? And then I think Robbie has the number off the top of his head. So this affects Robbie's class as well, again, at Science with a Lab. So what is it, Robbie? Like 12% of your lab content is lost because of that single holiday day, right?
Well, it's actually 6.7, which rounds up to 7. So if I have a Monday holiday in a lab section, I have to forfeit the whole week, and that is 7% of my curriculum for the semester.
Yeah, so it's not just the holiday for the sciences in particular. It's a nightmare. And so the sciences have been requesting the calendar to be pushed back beyond Martin Luther King because it wasn't usually there. And then you say, well, what about all the holidays in the fall? And then we will all nod our head and start crying, because yes, there are a lot of holidays in the fall, and it makes lab scheduling and this idea really hard. And so that's why it's so important for the sciences, PE, and then like I said, anyone that meets a course for like evening sections, you have a Monday class only, and you miss 3 hours of course content, that's, you know, a week for other disciplines, a full week. So it's not just the holiday, that holiday really impacts certain programs more than others. Ruth, Anna, Trisha, Robbie, and then we probably have to move on. We definitely have to move on. And then Robin to our presentation from the FA.
Tara voiced some of the concerns of social sciences. So I'm glad that she did that. We don't believe that classes can be effectively taught in shorter periods in the summer, and the overlap doesn't necessarily work. It's not about being sequential. It is a lot in part by what students are taking. And so, for instance, students may take 1 to 2 challenging courses per term, and that could lead to potentially up to 4 weeks of overlap when they've chosen to take them over the summer, just taking 2. Versus now, let's say they go to 8 weeks, that could be up to what looks like 4 weeks or so, maybe 5. I'd have to look at that spreadsheet again, of overlap of them taking 4 challenging courses, which could be a major problem. And I know this is a pattern that I observe with students because they always so frequently come up to me and say, hey, Professor Malice, I'm taking English 110 and I'm also thinking about taking your class. What do you think about this? Or I'm taking stats or I'm taking calc. So that's a major issue. A question I have is, you may get a lot. So another reason it's an issue is because there's not going to be any coordination across departments, right? So what if, I mean, I'm all for extending econ for 8 weeks, but math is going to extend for 8 weeks and English is going to extend for 8 weeks. And so we're going to have all these difficult classes having a major overlap. And so that's one thing I want to point out. I get the thing with sciences. I mean, we all go through that. I mean, it hurts my curriculum as well. And I was doing the numbers, and Robbie, you may be 12 because I think I'm 6%. So anyway, we can deal with that later. And so question I have for you, which I think I know the answer to, I hope I know the answer to this, Jens, is who will determine like the length? What if administration wants classes to be changed to a different length? That falls within the purview of Senate, right? We're not going to be hearing from administrators telling us, oh, no one wants to budge to this other. We offered it and we changed it, but no one wants to switch. So we're only offering 6 and 6, say, with that 2-week overlap. Is administration then going to come in and try to make a switch?
I'll field that question, Bruce. So I want to do a couple of things. I'd like to remind us that 6 years ago, we had a 6-week semester. And amazingly enough, students survived and worked well with that. We moved to a 2 6-week term, and amazingly enough, students worked and survived that. We have spent the last 3 years responding to significant concerns about student success in a double 6-week term from folks in student services who wanted to make sure that financial aid worked correctly and appropriately across the term, from folks who wanted to make sure that there was enough time in the whole of the academic year to process students' enrollment, petitioning, counseling, and ed planning. We responded to folks who wanted to make sure that there was enough time in between classes to accommodate lab structures, that there was enough time within semesters that people didn't lose lab time and contact hours like Robbie talked about. There will be no perfect solution unless we can stick into the academic year 1 more month. That would solve everything. So all of these are going to have advantages and disadvantages. What we're going to try to do is not have some administrative push that Ruth is concerned about, where we'll come in and take over your scheduling of courses, but to create a synchronized, integrated scheduling process where faculty and chairs and deans work together to build a robust summer schedule that is logical and successful for students. So it's interesting, I didn't hear from any of the student services senators, the ESD senators in this conversation about what the sense has been back in counseling. And actually I can see Anna's hand up, so she may have opinions on this that she might want to weigh in on. There are a lot of different ways to do this. We are trying to pick the option that allows the greatest flexibility to serve students within a time period that will actually allow for better instructional space. So we need more time between fall and spring. And we haven't talked about that much today, but the time between fall and spring is actually critical to student success. So students who fall out in fall have a bunch of steps they have to go through between December and January. And right now, the way our schedule is set up, our beginning time period keeps creeping back earlier and earlier into January in order to be able to accommodate the way we're set up. That has caused enormous anxiety and pain and frustration on behalf of counselors, folks in financial aid, everybody who has to manage a petition process. And so we're worried that students aren't making it through this gauntlet of things they have to do in between those 2 terms. So we're talking a lot about summer and the small number of students who take summer courses, but the impact of this calendar change is actually really significant on our primary terms. So you heard about that from kind of the science and lab perspective, but I want you to think about it on the student success side for the pieces and the bureaucracy that wrap around student life. And that happens between December and January. And this change actually helps improve that.
Okay, I'm not quite done. You addressed way more than I asked about. But
Oh,
I did
okay,
get
it's
the
got
answer to the
big.
question,
All right.
and it was so yeah. So thank you for that. But I did get my answer was in there that where you said you would try to have faculty take care of this. So that means hopefully, but maybe not. So that doesn't mean that you won't. So that is a concern that I have. In an ideal world, yes, these departments would offer this cohesive schedule, but that doesn't happen. We don't live in that world. So I am still concerned about this. And I would like to remind senators that our primary concern here should be that of pedagogy.
So the time is now 4:06, and I definitely want to get to questions. Actually, see Anna's hand up. Yeah, so let's get these questions in. Anna, Trisha, Robbie, Robin. And then we're going to pause on this discussion, and we're going to have to come back to it because it's not settled. Also, perhaps an interest of efficiency and time. I know this is a little bit outside of our norms, but after these questions coming back to this conversation, I'm wondering if we want to go to the pro-con model of the discussion. Like, I feel like I'm getting the impression that faculty does not support this, for instance. So like message received. So if there is faculty that is supporting this, I want to hear that. And so I think maybe we don't have to keep, you know, as they say, beating a dead horse, right? And so what I need from this conversation is what is our vote, right? And then as something gets employed, we can critique it and update it and change it or not, right? So not everything has to be fleshed out today, but what I do need is to walk away from this conversation with my vote for the faculty body. So Anna, Robbie, Robin, oh, and Trisha put her hand down. Anna?
Okay, I do support it. For the work that we see on our end as ESD faculty for many of the reasons that were shared. But additionally, I think it's important to keep in mind students having the opportunity to take a 10 or 8-week course in a summer term that might normally not enroll in summer at all, because 6 weeks is absurd for many of our students. So I hear the idea of possibly losing students because they're not enrolling in 2 summer sessions, but we might pick up additional students who normally don't enroll at all. And we know a lot of those populations tend to be equity populations because they're working, and 6 weeks is not manageable a lot of the time with the external responsibilities that students have. I also wanted to just put out there that I think if we're gonna move forward with this new calendar, I do think it's important not to have a ton of overlap in terms of the classes. I work in the VCCD district, and I don't see a whole lot of issues with students with a week or 2 of overlap. But I think if we start getting real wild on kind of offering them at, you know, whatever time frame we want to, then that's definitely going to be impactful. And then again, just thinking about equity students and the financial aid ramifications of not being able to access aid is a huge thing that will impact students and our enrollments and our ability to teach during the summer in those areas. So I just wanted to put that all out there.
All right. So I see a whole bunch more hands. So I'll write everybody's name down, but from previous, I believe it was Robbie and then Robin, and then Kathy, Ellen, Trisha will get to you after our FA presentation. So Robbie and then Robin. Can you guys not hear me?
I couldn't hear you, but now I can.
Oh.
Anna just said one of the things I was going to add, which is the most of my division is for this new 5+5, 10-week total. And most of the people who were not were because of TLU limits. They're teaching one class in summer session 1 and a different one in summer session 2 that are not linked. And the only reason they're not doing them both in one summer session is because of TLU limits. And I know that that is not our purview, and that's a discussion that's happening somewhere else. But I think it's important to know that that's the main source of resistance from my division. And there were several instructors in my division who said that this would be good for a reason that Anna just mentioned, which is that now they can teach potentially an 8 or 9 or 10-week course that before was not available to them. So the sciences supports this.
Okay, so we had Robin, and then we're going to do the presentation and come back to.
Thanks. Our division is not unified on support or lack of support for this. ESL is, I would say, highly supportive for some of the reasons that have already been mentioned. The one financial aid application point is very important for equity students, but the flexibility is a huge one for ESL students. Most of them work a lot, and the compressed schedule is hard for them in the summer. And so having the flexibility to extend and have more normal class meeting hours for them is a benefit for ESL. On the School of Modern Language side, they are kind of split on it for some of the same reasons. They have 5-unit classes. They would not want to extend them to beyond 5 weeks because they do offer sequential courses, but they also offer back-to-back courses in the day. And they're worried about the number of hours that would be added to each class and how it would affect the ability of part-time students to take 2 classes. It would basically mean they'd be in school all day with those 2 5-unit courses. So that was one of their concerns. And then the overlap with other courses and other departments, they fear will result in loss of enrollments, that students will be forced to make a choice between overlapping courses, particularly at that, transition point of the end of one 5-week session. So those were some of the same concerns for slightly different reasons, but we're kind of split on it in my division. So that's it.
Okay, so right on, cool. So we are going to come back to this decision because I definitely need something concrete to move forward, but we do have Jeff Gray here. Jeff, I'm so sorry that we're running a little bit behind on your presentation, but we're here now. So as a reminder, the Senate voted in the fall of 2019 in collaboration with the FA to move at least several items over to our collective bargaining agreement, one of them being faculty evaluations. So the FA has been hard at work on updating our faculty evaluations for the past 2 years, and Jeff is here to give us an update.
So yeah, thank you, Rayanne. So I don't know how presentations work here. I can't share my screen. So I emailed you the slides.
Oh,
just a few minutes ago.
I was giving you permission.
Okay, great. That
You
works.
should be able to go now.
Yes, I can
Cool.
share now.
All right, so take it away.
So I'm actually going to, so I'm not just me presenting, Eileen Vilcek-Scammahorn's gonna kick this off. So Eileen, why don't you take it away?
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for seeing us today and happy end of the semester. And I really appreciate, I know that you're in the midst of a really intense conversation. And so I appreciate you sort of changing conversational topics for a minute or however many minutes. I'm going to go through the first number of slides more quickly because Jeff and I wanted to allow more time for you to discuss and have present any questions that you had. So these were the members of the work group, and I'm going to try to, exit full screen, and I'm just trying to find my notes here. So thanks for your patience. So as Rayanne mentioned, in December of 2019, the Senate voted to move the evaluations and the TLU limits into the collective bargaining agreement. So the eval procedures couldn't be immediately moved into the CBA as is. The district had asked for revisions. So prior to beginning to review and revise AP 7151, the work group members trained in best practices in faculty evaluations, met with a consultant, and reviewed the evaluation policies of several other CCs, which had been recommended by the FA lawyer, union colleagues, and the EVP. A survey was written and administered, and thank you to Ellen Carey for all of her hard work on that. So in terms of the survey, there was 126 people who responded. As you can see here, that they were generally satisfied with the current faculty-driven evaluation process, but 15% were very dissatisfied, and there were definitely multiple suggestions. So there's definitely room for improvement, and that's where the work group comes in. So we began revising at the beginning of December, and one of the major goals is to seek clarity to reduce grievances. Ed Code 8760, the 663, evaluatees have the right to fair, equitable, and clear evaluation procedures. So the 5 areas that we focused on for improvement are clarity, diversity, equity, and inclusion, online classes and work, training and support, and other. So I'm going to let Jeff, but Jeff is going to take over and do the middle of the presentation here.
Thanks, Eileen. Yeah, so I want to take those in order. I want to start, well, actually, there's a thing I want to talk about first, which is the structure of AP 7151 and why that's so important here. So in case you haven't read the whole 52-page AP recently, here's how it works. There's a general overview, which we're going to skip over, but then there's 2 really distinct parts of it. One of them is the performance criteria, so how people are going to be evaluated, and the second part is the procedures. And so we're really looking at that as kind of Senate purview for the performance criteria, right? That's pedagogy and just how people are going to be evaluated, and that's really a faculty thing. And then the procedures are more of a legalese, make sure all the rules are followed thing, and that's what we're looking at as sort of FA purview. Now, the reason this is so important is that what we've done so far is we've been tinkering with AP 7151 basically, but we haven't really touched pages 5 through 9, all the performance criteria, because we recognize that Senate wants a really strong voice on that. And so there's a few areas there that we've identified that are potentially problematic and that have led to some grievances in the past. And so going forward, what we're thinking of is we really need Senate's input on this in a few different ways. Number one, we have to determine who's going to be ultimately responsible for the performance criteria going forward, right? When it goes, once we migrate from the AP to the contract, that's really like the contract is really FA purview, right? And so we're technically ultimately responsible for everything, but we recognize that Senate wants to have a really strong voice and maybe just control the performance criteria entirely. So we need from you guys some sort of sense of who's going to be ultimately responsible for the performance criteria going forward, right? And we've identified a few different options. There's kind of a continuum here. The first one is sort of the Senate just kind of proposes criteria language, right? You guys just say what the criteria are going to be. Or we could do something like we propose our language, we get some Senate feedback, maybe, kind of co-control it. Or it could just be the case that Senate wants to just be done with it and FA can take responsibility for all the performance criteria entirely. And we need to know kind of which way we're going forward, just to be sure, just to know who's doing what, basically. So on that and a few other things here, I'm going to ask you guys to please, we want to be negotiating on this in fall, essentially. And so we have a few requests from you guys to give us some input on this, and that's number one. Like, who's going to control this going forward? And I don't know who makes that decision, so we're going to leave that one up to you. But like I said, we haven't touched the performance criteria, but we do have some thoughts on things that are a little bit problematic or potentially problematic in there. Number one is what determines needs improvement or a substandard determination. The AP is pretty vague on that, and I think it's intentional to give maximum flexibility and like professional judgment. But that can be a problem given that, like Eileen said, Ed Code specifies that everybody has to have equitable evaluations, right? That is a problem that we've run into in the past. There have been both grievances and lawsuits based on that idea. And so we're asking you to please think about how we're going to determine what determines a needs improvement or a substandard. And there's a couple things that seem like oversights it's probably historical reasoning. But there's really not very much in the criteria. Well, there's really nothing in the criteria about diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? How a teacher is, or how a faculty member, how inclusive they are, how much access they provide, anything like that. That's really not spelled out in there. And that feels like an oversight at this point. That given the modern climate, I will say, that we feel like we might want to have some something in there. If you're looking for some language, Los Rios has some very simple, just a couple minor bullet points to throw in there that you can go look at their contract if you want to. And I'll say the same thing about online instruction. There's nothing. There's nothing in the criteria about online instruction. We have some recommendations for that. COI has done some of that. We have AP 4105. That's not directly in this AP 7151, and we think those things probably should be rolled in together. And we want to leave it up to you guys to sort of tell us how you think those things should be rolled in. Right? They're not technically necessary, but they feel like things that could really be beneficial. And then there's two other things. Replacing satisfactory with meets or exceeds expectations. This is a thing that I've heard a lot from faculty when we're talking about evaluations, is they hate the feeling of getting satisfactory. It feels like you're getting a C. Whereas meets or exceeds expectations sounds like an A or a B. And no effective change here, just trying to make people feel better about their evaluations. And that actually, we're thinking that might reduce grievances in some way. When people feel better about their evaluations, they're less likely to grieve them. I don't know how important that'll be, but that seems like an easy thing to do.
Jeff, do you know how many people grieve satisfactory evaluations?
We do collectively, but I don't. I would refer you to Carmen or Cornelia, who are our grievance officers on that. But they're
So just to be clear, a satisfactory evaluation is like you pass, right?
yeah. I think people don't grieve satisfactory ones very often at all. Sorry, I apologize. I misinterpreted your question there. We get very few grievances on satisfactory evaluations, but each subpart also has satisfactory needs improvement.
Right, but you grieve yeah, it doesn't matter. Thanks.
Yeah. And then we're thinking that some guidance on improvement plan content might be appropriate for the criteria, since those two feed in together quite a bit. I'll address that a little bit when we talk about training in a second. So what we're thinking about is we would really like to have your feedback and input on this stuff kind of as soon as you can. We're thinking maybe this would be a good topic for your summer meeting. I know you were just talking about how you already have all these summer work groups. If you could have another one, we would really appreciate it. But we're thinking maybe we get feedback by the summer retreat so that we can start talking about start negotiating in fall, ideally.
Sure. Jeff, we have a question. Ruth?
Yes.
Actually, I think you just answered it. These are really important considerations that we handed over, what was it, 2019?
Yeah.
And so my question was, you want us to give you feedback and you wanted to negotiate. If I was wondering if I heard you correctly, that you wanted to negotiate this fall. I don't think that's realistic. We're getting this literally the last meeting of our Senate sessions this year, not even just this term, but for the academic year. And for the summer, we have our summers set up to deal with all these other things we can't address during the regular year, right? Which are nevertheless important. So I don't see this as being a feasible request. Yeah.
So to address that, I agree that this is kind of late notice to get it done by fall. I have no idea whether it's possible. We would really appreciate if it could come back that fast, but really, if not, we would love to know how long it would take and when we could have that, because negotiations are going to be ongoing, right? Like they're not going to happen. We would like to start with this stuff in there, but it doesn't have to be that way, right? We can introduce things later, but we would love to start. So what we need is your input on this, basically, right? We recognize Senate wants to have a really strong voice in performance criteria. These are some things that we think the performance criteria could use. We would love to know how fast we can get that back. Ideally by fall. If not by fall, please let us know when.
Well, I just need to reiterate what Ruth just shared, because I feel like it's not coming through. So the FAA has had this for 2 years. You have looked at our AP and have some changes there. And you're saying we want feedback from you about the criteria language from the first part. And I'm just struggling with that because that in the fall of 2019, when the FA supported the Senate moving this to the collective bargaining agreement, it was not only part of that agreement that we would still hold that piece and that we had collegial, I forget what they call it, collegial consultation on it, essentially, but also like, or a consultative role in this process, I believe the language is. But like we also own that part. So I'm a little bit taken aback that you're saying we want to hear this from you, because that was the understanding all along, and it was literally codified in the documents that we passed at the Senate, which there was an FA Senate work group that developed those together, and Ellen was part of that. And Ellen, why don't you ask your question? Go ahead, Ellen.
Yeah, actually, it's more of a recommendation than a question, since I was given credit for drafting the original draft of the survey. Thank you for that. I remember that the survey asked those responding to identify whether they were full-time or part-time faculty, and also to identify the division. So I think it would paint a fuller picture to disaggregate the data on the survey results, especially between full-time and part-time, and see if there may be some significant differences in satisfaction with the current process between those different groups and or between different divisions, if that hasn't already been done.
Yeah, so I don't have a slide on that for you, but we did do that, yes. And there is some difference in satisfaction levels. If I remember correctly, the part-timers were much more split on 1 or 5, like they were either very dissatisfied or
so I think that's valuable information to have. Also, just to note, I know just from my FA role that the survey was divided into 2 sections, one on the face-to-face evaluation process and one on the process for online courses. And it was 25% of respondents who were dissatisfied with the process for the online evaluation. So I do think that's really significant, a quarter. So I think that's something that needs to be addressed, as taken seriously as well.
So 100% agree. That is exactly why we have some, that's why we're making that recommendation here, right? That there needs to be some sort of guidance. Now, to address your point, the main reason that they were dissatisfied, and I went through every single one and read every response. The main reason they were dissatisfied was because the student surveys didn't work very well. They felt that those were really, really awkward. They didn't like talking to their students about something that they really weren't allowed to have interaction with them about, and a variety of other things. And as you'll see a little bit later, we still need to address that, but we have some ideas on what to do in those cases. Let me pivot back to the thing Rayanne said a second ago about we're thinking about who's responsible for what, and we agree. Like I agree with what you said. Maybe I didn't present it very well, but I agree with what you said, that Senate still owns the performance criteria. That's the way we're thinking about it right now, and that's why we haven't touched anything. But ultimately, anything that goes into the contract is our responsibility, right? We have to negotiate it into the contract regardless of who is in control of the content. And so we haven't heard anything about any adjustments to the performance criteria. And so that's why we want to be entirely clear about who's doing what. Now, I understand that we haven't necessarily asked for a lot of feedback on it. So that's probably why we haven't heard anything. But we haven't heard anything about what you guys were doing on it, if anything, either.
So I got it. Jeff, I'm so sorry. I definitely have to stop you. So And I have to stop you because people probably aren't privy to the fact that in the fall, the FA and Senate steering had a meeting together where this was the entire topic of our meeting. Several of us were asking for the update and where you were all at. And I will admit, in the interest of transparency, I was very taken aback that the FA hadn't made more groundwork here. And I literally asked if we could have it back because I wanted the AP to be updated. So that was a very contentious meeting. And I would argue that the most recent meeting with the FA and the Senate was also contentious. So, you know, not only has the FA not asked, and I really hate even talking about this in public because now it's going to drive this narrative that the Senate is out to get the FA, and that's absolutely not the case. We haven't been working on this because from our fall meeting, and please Senate steering and other FA members speak up so that it's not coming from me. I feel a little frustrated here that it's not that we weren't working on this. We were basically told that you all were working on this. And then Patricia, Robbie, Ruth, can somebody like help me here? I feel Ellen.
Yeah, I concur with all that.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, we were, well, okay. So in that, just to also be totally clear, I was in that meeting, not as a member of Senate or Senate steering, but as a member of the FA board. But I do remember that when Senate steering members spoke about making some improvements, like could Senate make some improvements to the AP now? They were told that they could not because this whole thing is now a subject of collective bargaining. And so it's not something that the Senate has any access to.
I also concur with that.
Oh,
that's what I remember as well.
So this is super important. This is a super important intersection for the Senate and RFA. And it's 4:30 and we have important things to get to tonight. And I just don't know that we are going to come to a resolution. So I'm a little bit worried about the optics of ending this conversation. However, I'm also worried about ending the meeting on time and getting to the important Senate work. I want to tread very carefully, and I want to offer that it is completely unreasonable to come to the last, as Ruth said, to come to the last Senate meeting of the year and say that you're going to be negotiating this in the fall when you've had this for 2 years. By the way, our summer retreat meetings are literally like an hour at a time. So I don't know what work you expected the Senate to accomplish in that time. And faculty evaluation is probably the most important feature of like our working life, other than like working with students. So I'm a little at a loss as the academic Senate president for the best way forward of this. And yeah, I guess the Senate is going to have to create a summer work group to address this. I don't see another way around it. And yeah, I guess that's just what we're going to have to do. Now, I'm a little taken aback by that because like I said, in the fall, when we had the conversation about this, we were explicitly told that it was part of negotiations and we can't touch it. So I'm stammering. Jeff, would you like to provide some concluding remarks? I just want to make sure that our meeting gets wrapped up by 5. Jenny Baxton?
Yes. Jenny, you're muted.
I would also add that doing this over the summer with a small work group and without a lot of consultation from our divisions is also really problematic.
Yeah, because this touches literally on every single faculty person. That's what I was trying to emphasize, that this is probably the most important part of our of our working life.
Okay, then let me just say this. We have clearly not communicated as well as we could have. So let's just resolve to going forward. So I will commit right now to communicating better with you guys about what intersection we have on this and what we need to do. Because obviously our thoughts and yours are very different on this. And I understand that over summer might not work. We will get back to you about what specifically we're going to be negotiating on in fall as soon as we can. So let me just say this. I recognize that apparently what we have said and what you have said it's not meshed very well. And so we will try to do better going forward. With that in mind, here we have some suggestions. I hope you will look at them if you can. Please contact us and we'll talk more about what we need in the criteria going forward, and you can decide what you want to modify. But I guess maybe consider this, instead of, hey, get this done by summer, maybe consider this the initial communication that we still need Senate's input on these criteria.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be combative. I'm not trying to be argumentative. I realize that my positionality, my gender makes me look both of those things right now, but we can't call this the first communication. We asked the FA to come in the fall because we were worried about where things were at. So we had you and Cornelia present in the fall. We tried to do this privately and have Senate FA conversations around this, right? So I cannot let it stand in an official meeting that the Senate has kind of let this dangle out there for 2 years and we haven't been trying to prod you all. Ruth?
Yeah, you said mostly what I was going to say. Jeff, and everyone else from the FA who's here, I appreciate you, Jeff, right now for saying that you're voicing that you're going to do better about communicating. But these clarifying points that we're making is an attempt to make sure that no one's changing the narrative here, that things are clear, that what's happened. Because what can happen is, in part because of, again, positionality, our gender, our background, our sassiness, whatever it may be, or we're labeled as being sassy. We're trying to make it very clear that we don't want the narrative to change. We do appreciate this, so that everyone knows the story. We're not trying to change things, right? So that no one has the opportunity to go outside and start saying, reflecting via email, that some of us may not be being collegial. So we absolutely want to be collegial. We want to work with you, but we need the story to be clear, and we are going to need more time for sure.
And we've discussed these things. I think that's important. We literally exchanged emails about the criteria language because Robin took the time and went to an ASCCC webinar and emailed all of us. Right? So we've had these conversations via email, we've had these conversations in private meetings, we've had these conversations in public meetings. So I'm just taken back by this. And we have really important things to discuss at the Senate, and it's 4:40. So I really want to move on. So Jeff, please wrap it up for us.
All right, well, wrapping up, let me skip through. So the next couple slides, if you want to look at them, are what we've done so far and things that we wanted to talk about. So I'll let you look over those. There is one thing that I really do want to say. There's a thing that we've put in that we want to notify Senate about, make sure that everyone's clear that we've done this, that we're not trying to hide it. That the district asked for about evaluation of faculty working in multiple departments. Our solution is right here if you want to read it. Links on the slides. And then here's where we're going. Right, this is we would like to start negotiating as quickly as possible, but we recognize that there's still a lot of work to do and feedback to take in. So you can have a look at that, and that's what we've got for you. And I'll just wrap it up with that.
Thanks, Jeff. Is there any final questions? Michelle, I see you unmuted yourself. Any final questions? Nope, she's muted. Robin?
I really hesitate to prolong the topic, but I just want to say that I'm continually baffled by this process. When we turned this over to the FA, which was under Patricia, initially, there was clear understanding of the delineation and the need for collaboration and for the Senate to be involved in the Senate's part and the FA to be involved in this part. And I'm really baffled at why this has happened the way that it has, and that the numerous attempts to communicate have not been effective at letting the FA know what the expectation was of bringing things back to the Senate and consulting with the Senate. So I just want to say, as somebody who's like watched this sort of flow through, I agree with Ray's description of what's happened, and other people have also chimed in on that. But this is really one of the biggest things that we have to work on, and I'm really concerned about any negotiation starting when we just haven't had the kind of consultation with the broader faculty and also with the Senate that needs to happen.
So our version of consultation with the faculty, or of consultation with faculty, is going through our consultation council, our divisional representation, rather than directly coming back here. But I agree with you that there hasn't been consultation with the broader faculty yet, which is why that's on our side, right? We need to have a consultation.
It's actually both, though, because the Senate, as I tried to communicate by sending the information from the webinar, the Senate has a clear and defined and necessary role in this process too.
So I'll just agree with our lack of communication, at least from our side. I don't want to take up any more of your time and delay your meeting. I will just commit to communicating better going forward.
Thank you so much for that, Jeff. I really appreciate your time. Senators will have to return to the conversation about the calendar. I know this feels very jarring. So when we left off on the calendar discussion, we had hands up from Kathy, Ellen, Tricia, and Jen Hamilton. I want to remind us that the time is now 4:44, and so our meeting is quickly coming to an end. And people needed to get out of here for our celebrations, so please just keep that in mind. Kathy, Ellen?
Yes, Kathy, or do you want to go, Ellen, go first?
No,
Okay.
Kathy, go first.
Our division is very much in favor of option 2, but beyond that, I am very concerned about our students. We have 700 to 800 students that appeal financial aid after each term. Michael Medell in the past has presented to us the hundreds of petitions of students who are on academic or withdrawal probation or disqualification who need to go through the appeals process. And the way we operate now, there just is not time for all those appeals to be done appropriately. And our real disadvantaged students are often in that group of students that needs help. So any way we can give them more time to get this done so they can actually go to school and be our students, I think is really to our advantage and their advantage. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. And you reminded me, I forgot to mention it. I think it's important to share out, especially because we don't have an ASG rep right now, that the ASG rep did vote to support the new calendar, the option 2 that we're all looking at. So in addition to what Kathy's saying, our students have vetted this and move forward with approval of option 2.
Thank you for sharing that.
Okay, so we had Ellen, Tricia, and Jen Hamilton.
I was just going to say that in general, while there are differing opinions within our division, I think there's a lot of support for option 2 in the ESD division. And I think Jen can speak more to that in terms of counseling in particular.
Thank you. Tricia, did you still have a question? And then Jen?
Well, I just wanted to, a lot of what other people were saying were kind of in here, but one of our constituents said that the 5-week session, I know we have options to make it 6 or 7, but A lot of people would want to probably fit in, like class number 1, class number 2, so sequential. But 5-week session require longer class times, which are very hard on both students and teachers. A person can only absorb so much material at any given time. And after they're saturated, students just zone out, and it's kind of a waste of time. So I just think we also should consider pedagogical reasons if we are trying to have sequential classes. And the other thing was that talking about sequential classes, about only 15 to 20% continue from 1 to 2. I believe Jen's mentioned, and I was just wondering if non-credit was included in that too. But I just wanted to bring that up. I don't need to have it answered. Okay, I'm finished.
Thanks, Tricia. Counselor Jen?
Thank you. So in regards to the ESD division, academic counselors have been very supportive of Calendar 2. We work very closely with admissions and financial aid and have counselors who sit on the financial aid appeals committee and different scholastic standards committees as well. And again, we are very much in favor of 2. It does offer a lot more flexibility for our students when we are working with our students one-on-one, working with their educational plans. 6 weeks, the current summer session can be very limiting to students. And on the students who are wanting to take it, this opens up a lot more flexibility for students to consider summer school, and that it might be a very good fit considering now that they're going to have longer sessions within the 10-week. So I just wanted to bring that up, that we have been extremely excited about this calendar option 2 and the flexibility it's going to bring to our students. And we really do think that it will drive more of our students to consider summer school than they have in the past. And I'm sorry, one more thing. You did, I think, Ray, you mentioned too about the primary, or I think it might have been, I don't know who it is, I'm sorry, but the primary terms are 2. That was a big contributor. It gives our students a lot more time in between this, the regular primary sessions to get registered. Some students, it comes too quickly and they're not in time to register for classes. So we do find that it will provide students more opportunity, especially in January term, to register for classes and meet with counselors, et cetera. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jen. And to offer a few more points, I do want to say a couple of things. So I mentioned that the Associated Student Government voted to support this. I also want to point out that while we're talking about how the time in between the terms by shortening this up is beneficial for students in terms of paperwork processing, and we're hearing from our counselors that this is true, right? The other population on campus, and I have not reached out to them, like they get a vote at this meeting as well, but what I would like to offer is when we originally went to 2 summer terms, one of the biggest complaints that we heard in the surveys after we gave them out was that staff was really pressed for time in terms of, re-upping equipment, and Rob Brown is emphatically shaking his head. From chemistry, we have a chemistry stockroom worker who used to do all of the chemical inventory during the summer, which is like a legally required OSHA thing. And like that became very hard to get done, right? We have photography equipment and art equipment, and the library, right? There was a lot of, like, let's say, re-upping and refreshing and work that needs to get done during the summer, that when we move to this 2 summer model, it became very hard to get that done. So I think that I don't speak for staff, you don't speak for staff, but I do want you to think about staff. I do want you to think about students. I also want us to think about, like, what would you have said last spring if the school said, we're all going online, deal with it, right? You would have said you couldn't do it. And yet, like, look at the innovation and all of the like things that happened over the last year, right? And some of us are itching to go back, and some of us really found really innovative things to do with our teaching. So is this an opportunity to stay with the status quo? Is this an opportunity to figure things out? Is this an opportunity for opening up options to students? You know, just think about those things as we move on in this conversation. There's 9 minutes left in the meeting. So after Julie's comment, I would like to get to a place where we are wrapping this up so that I know what I'm carrying forward to this meeting. So Julie?
Okay, I just wanted the last thing, in our division, we talked about how if we gave up spring break, the students, some of the students would not have to pay another month's rent. You know, also there's lots of other things, but we could have 12 weeks instead of 10. And I like the idea of having all these different flexibilities, but I wish we could have 12 weeks and you know, lots of bad things happen during spring break anyway. And if they just have a long weekend like we do with Thanksgiving, I think it would be better. It would save the students a lot of rent money here.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been a great point to bring up to the calendar task force. And I really appreciate like the innovativeness that you're offering at this point. I do think that whatever we choose for like this upcoming calendar, like we can like choose a different route like after that, right? Like I view this as like an experiment. Like it's like, why are things set in stone, right? Things are changing all the time. So
test
like
market.
Test market. There you go. I like the jargon. So, you know, yeah, I mean, like just because we do one thing, like it's, I would hope it's not set in stone. So just thinking about that. So at this point, I just want to say, I heard from our ESD senators. I heard from our part-time senator. I heard from Robbie in the sciences that was mostly favorable for the option 2. And then I heard I feel like I heard a bunch of my division doesn't support this, right? And I don't know the numbers. I think there was more I don't support this than I do. So now I would like to hear from like somebody outside of the sciences, ESD, that does support the option 2. Jenny?
I will echo the feedback I received from my division was along the lines of what we heard from social sciences, from Tara and Ruth, the concern about a 5-week compressed option. Pedagogically, we think that would be bad for students, at least for us. And so my question at the previous meeting also, I had asked what Ruth was trying to get at, which is, are we really going to get affirmation that we are not going to be forced to go that direction? You know, that we will still have control over that. So for me, that's a determining factor, just that assurance that we would be in favor of that. I'm also interested hearing from the counselors. I think Jen and Anna were saying that for many students, what they hear is that there's a sort of relief with some of the longer session options, like a 6-week or 8-week or 10-week, that they feel that might be more manageable and more amenable to their success in a course. And I thought that was really powerful. I'm wondering also if that's why maybe ASG, that's one of the reasons that they were supportive of it, is the option to keep or to innovate longer sessions within that 6, 8, 10 weeks. So if I'm hearing that works better for some like DEI populations, that's very powerful for me. And I would just encourage divisions to be thinking about that pedagogically, that this calendar would not have to mean we're going to all compress into 5-week sessions, which may not be good for students and is a huge concern for our division. But the innovation and flexibility to perhaps offer those other lengthier options based on what I'm hearing from counselors is very promising for me.
Jenny broke my rule again. That's okay. It's okay. Whatever, it's all good. I try and break from the norms, it's whatever. So Tara, I saw your hand go up. Are you still in the camp of not supporting this, or are you coming around to support it and now you want to speak to that?
I would like to speak to that. I personally do support this option too. And I'm wondering in many ways if some of the concerns raised by my division are in part misguided and maybe a misunderstanding. I would like to have the opportunity to share especially the student perspective with my division. I don't know that we have time. I don't know about that. But personally, I do support the option too. Ruth may totally disagree with me, but I do support the option too.
Okay, so we have 3 minutes left. I don't know how to do this in the time, but we need, I don't want anybody to call to question because I don't want to vote on the call to question. I don't want to take time to go through that formality. So Patricia, help me out here. Do we have to make a motion and move it to action? Can I just take an informal roll call vote so that I know how to vote? Like, we don't need a formal recommendation at this point, right?
A couple of questions first, Ray. Is this going to now be the official position of the Academic Senate? Or is this just a conversation that you're having? In the past, we did take official votes. I will point out that we would have to take a vote to move it to action. And then we would have to have a motion. Then we would have to have discussion. And then we would have to have a formal vote. That is consistent with past practice. It will require an extending of the meeting.
And we have EOPS graduation and people are itching to get out of here. So so it is the official vote of the Academic Senate. Rushing is not a great way to do this because this is so important. However, this has been on our agenda before and we have been talking about this for an hour. So I feel as though I need to prod you all a little bit and get this going. So I would like to hear a motion to move this to action. And then I'm going to need somebody to make a motion to formally recommend something to the Academic Senate President.
Ray, one more point of order. We have an option, something called call the question. If after we move this to action, if a senator would call the question, if 2/3 of the senators vote to do that, that would cut off all discussion and we'd go straight to the vote. That is an option.
So we have to vote on the call to question, right?
Right, and we would need 2/3 of a vote, which for us is 11. That's an option to reduce time.
Thank you for that. I still haven't heard a motion to move this to action.
And move it to action.
Okay, so we're going to be moving.
Second.
Was that Kathy? So we have a motion to move this to action by Robbie, seconded by Kathy. Any discussion? Moving it to action. Okay. Roll call vote. Julie Brown, yes, no, or abstain? Moving this. Abstain. Jen Hamilton.
Yes.
Ellen.
Yes.
Jenny.
Yes.
Patricia.
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
Dee Dee. She was with students. Pam? No, I'm sorry. Elizabeth?
Abstain.
Abstain. Kathy?
Yes.
Robin?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Robbie?
Yes.
Ruth?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Russell?
Yes.
Trisha?
Yes.
And Anna had to leave for EOPS graduation and her proxy vote as arranged ahead of the meeting went to Ellen Carey.
Yes.
Okay, so this item has been moved to action. So now I would love to hear a motion from a senator to provide the Academic Senate President with a recommendation to support option 1, which is effectively no change in our summer scheduling, or supporting option 2.
So moved.
Second.
Wait. I just gave you an or.
Pick something, Robbie.
Okay, I move to make the president support option number 2.
Second.
Who was that? Michelle?
Kathy.
Kathy. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Now, we could have discussion, or as Patricia.
I'll make a motion to call the question.
Okay, this at this point ends discussion and we need to have a vote on calling the question. We would need 11 people voting in favor of that.
All right, so this is a vote on call to question, which means it would force the calendar vote with no discussion. Yeesh. All right, a yes, no, or abstain on call to question, immediately moving to voting. Julie,
Abstain.
Counselor Jen,
Yes.
Ellen,
Yes.
Jenny,
Yes.
Patricia,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Elizabeth,
Abstain?
abstain, Kathy,
Yes.
Robin,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Robbie,
Yes.
Ruth,
Yes.
Tara,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Trisha,
Abstain.
Stain, and Ellen. On
On
behalf
behalf of Anna, yes.
of Anna, yes. Okay, so there's 13 votes. So we are now going to vote on the motion. The motion is to recommend to the Academic Senate President to support calendar option 2. Your votes are yes in support of that, no, or abstaining as a non-vote. Okay, Julie.
Abstain.
Abstain. Counselor Jen,
Yes.
Ellen,
Yes.
Jenny,
Yes.
Patricia,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Elizabeth,
Abstain?
Kathy,
Yes.
Robin,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Robbie,
Yes.
Ruth,
No.
Tara,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Trisha,
Oh, abstain.
Jane, and Ellen for Anna.
Yes.
That's 12. Motion passes. I have clear understanding of what I'm going to do. Thank you for that. Quickly wrapping up our last 2 items, the equity statement. Thank goodness that there's a really nice Google form that you can give your feedback line by line by line. We will be unable to give a formal feedback to our student equity committee from the Senate because we didn't get to this agenda item, and that's okay. Individuals can make your voices heard. AP 4240, academic renewal. This will be on our summer Senate agenda. That would be Wednesday, July 13th. We'll bring the sprinklers and hot dogs, and we'll still be socially distanced on Zoom, but I'll see you all then, unless I see you at commencement virtually Friday night. Thank you all for your time and your commitment to the Senate this academic Senate year. Congratulations to Patricia Stark. She survived. Oh, do we need a motion to adjourn, Patricia?
No, I just can't miss this opportunity, Ray, to thank you for your leadership in this extraordinary year.
Thanks.
I think I'm probably one of a handful of people on campus who can really appreciate the challenge that you faced. And I know you brought your best, and it's been in many ways an extraordinary year. And I just want to congratulate you on having survived it, and ask you to keep your reserves up for the next 3 years. But thank you.
I will. Thanks for that, Patricia. I really appreciate it. All right. Bye, y'all. Have a good night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.